What's up YouTube, Dow here from Zephyr Games, and thanks to you guys, you smashed that like button way over 50 times on the Charmer budget profile, so that means I will be doing you a test hand video, but I'm not going to do you any normal type of test hand video, no. What we're going to do in this type video is we're actually going to go more along the line as the title suggests, and it's about learning how to play the deck more so. Now, test hands are all well and good because you can start to see some of the combos, you'll start to see how the deck that I particularly profile for you guys work. But what we're going to do with this one as well, in a little bit something new, is I'm actually going to analyse the deck a bit more. I'm going to point out the core cards of what you need, just so that you can learn the deck on a more broader scope. So you kind of go, right, okay, well, if I've got this in my hand, where do I end up? Why do I choose to go that route? What are my other options as well? It'll become a lot clearer as we go through the video, so please stick with me as we can kind of go through it and explain each step as we go. But, as absolutely always, please smash that like button, hit the notification bell, and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more Yu-Gi-Oh content. If you like this type of test hand basic deck breakdown analysis, then please, again, remember to smash that like button to show your appreciation to this type of video, and I'll be more than happy to do videos like this, a little bit similar in the future as well. So, with that said and done, let's go through the core cards first of the deck. Now, obviously, to get your boss monsters, well I say boss monsters, to get your creative Awakening Possessed out of the deck, you do need a spellcaster. It could be any level 4 or lower spellcaster, doesn't matter. And then you need the combining or the attribute of the, I like to call them, I say they're Awakening Possessed, but not really, but like the ones that basically, if you control a spellcaster, you get to special summon them. So, what makes the best thing about these is they are generic with the material of spellcaster. It's only the other part that needs to be either an earth or water, fire or wind, depending on which one of the Awakening of the Possessed you are playing. So your core components, to make it a little bit better, to make sure your spells and traps are live, you ideally want your spellcaster to be a familiar possessed Irin, Asua, Win, or of course Hita as well. So any one of those is kind of your core starter. And then you need your other component, which is your free special summon monster, whichever ones you want to be focusing on. Now, in order to make these consistent as possible, what you do have in your repertoire is you do have the ability of the Grand Spiritual Art. This will allow you to reveal any spellcaster in your hand and then add the special summoner from the deck of the same attribute. Now, obviously, in the particular build that I've made, I'm only going to be able to search out Gigabyte and I'm only going to be search out the Archfiend, which means I need to reveal an Asua or an Irin in order to get to those components. But this is another way that acts as another copy of your free special summon, which is why you don't need to clog the deck down with it. Another one that can get you into your Irin, your Asua, your Hita and your Win is of course the Spirit Charmers, because this allows you to add either a Charmer monster, familiar possessed monsters, and or possessed spells or traps. So this is probably one of the core cards in the entire deck, because then that gets you into your Possessed Partnership, your Awakening of the Possessed, and the Unpossessed Trap as well. Now, the reason that Fairy Tail Luna is so good is because it is a spellcaster that can, again, search you out any of your Irin, your Win, Hita, or Asuas as well, so it gives you more consistency within the deck. Plus, it presents its own form of disruption. On top of that, it is a spellcaster, so if you do have Gigabyte or Nefarious Archfiend in your hand, you can special summon them, and that will then, again, get you into your Awakening Possessed monsters to perform some disruption on your opponent or revival. And then the reason you ideally want to go for these guys, rather than just going, okay, well, I've already got 2 monsters on the board, why don't I just go into a Link 2? Is because the idea is with this one, you're going to draw a card and rip one from hand, but ideally with this one as well, the Nefarious Archfiend, you summon it, you bring back one of the materials, but then you link them off there, because then it allows you to gain one of these 3 cards, which then means in turn, if you've put one of your Irins, your Heaters, your Wind or Asuas in the graveyard, your Possessed Partnership is then live, which is a non-target destruction. Your Awakening of the Possessed is then live as a draw card as well. So it just gives you a bit more consistency. It also allows you to get the missing piece that you might need in order to continue control your opponent. Now the deck itself is based on a control deck, so what do we mean by that? Well, basically it plays more during your opponent's turn. It's not about special summoning 7 cards, if not more, during your turn. It's more about being able to get the 2 cards on board, get into your Link 2, which the most meta-defining one right now would be Verte Anaconda into Dragoons if you do have it, but it's then also to back it up with cards like Call by the Grave, Solemn Judgment, and then other cards as well, like your Strikes, your Unpossessed. Some people even play Crackdown as well. So it's all about being able to have more back row protection to play around and control your opponent with the ideal scenario. So the ideal scenario of this deck is that if you do Verte to Dragoon, your back row would then be consistent of your Grand Spirit Art field spell, because that will allow you to negate the first monster effect. And if you do this correctly, your opponent can't bait this out, because what you can do is you can let their first effect go through if you're not worried about it. Then you can play the Possess. The Possess would then bring back one of your Charmer. Non-target destruction, so you get rid of the first monster that they've put on the board. And then because you're bringing back one of your Charmers that is going to have 1500 defense, this is then live to provide a first monster effect, or the next monster effect that your opponent activates as a negation, meaning that during your opponent's turn, you've had a non-target destruction, you've got a monster effect negation, mandatory, so it will be the first one they play, and then you'll have Dragoons as well, which gives you an Omni negate. Not to mention, if you back any of this up with, of course, your Unpossessed, if you're bringing back off the draw card as well. So, for example, all you needed to do to get into the Dragoons is 2 cards. You've still got 3 more cards to play with. So if your 3 cards would be 1 random card, that this one you would search off of the bigger guys. There you go, your Awakening of the Possessed. But then you've got your draw card here and you've got this here. So if you open up with this, you're already going to draw one as well, so you're going to replace it. And then you've got the mandatory negate there, and then you've got a non-target pop there. So this is kind of like the Holy Trinity, because then what you do is you'll draw during your turn as well. And keep in mind, the Awakening Possessed, give monsters you control 300 attack for each different attribute. So straight away with the Verte, Dragoon, and Irin, your Dragoon's going up to a base of 36, 46 if it negates anything, and your Verte Anaconda will be going up to 1100, and then the Familiar Possessed, if you wanted to have this in attack later on, will become a 2150, sorry, not a 2150, a 2450 at minimum. And then you're looking at all the other boss monsters you can bring out of your deck that then become even stronger. And the more attributes you put on the board, the stronger they're going to get. So that's just a brief kind of, I say brief, that was a good 7 minutes, but that just gives you a breakdown of the core components of the deck. So what you want to be aiming to get to, what you want to be aiming to finish on, the ability that ideally during your first turn you either want to be able to control your opponent with 3 or more back row, and then alongside with a Link 2 is the ideal situation. Now, if you want to go more combo heavy or just more controlled and able to special summon out more spellcasters, then you could put in stuff like Jester Conflict as well. The only issue with Jester Conflict is because it's not a water, wind, fire or earth monster, and it is in fact a dark and light, it doesn't really synergize well with the field spell. And that's one big disappointment that I found is I thought initially when I read the field spell it was reveal a spellcaster, but you can only search out like the special summon monster of the same attribute. So the other spellcasters you could technically use in this deck aren't great in the form of utilities. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of test stands. We'll probably do one guy in first, one guy in second. But if at any point I feel that we need to do more of them, I will do. But the idea is just to kind of, again, give you a breakdown of the deck so that you can understand it a little bit better. Rather than you, like, what we don't want to do is you don't want you guys to get frustrated when, like, I can't figure out what this deck is meant to do, I don't know what its core cards are, and this kind of comes off the back of the building the structure deck or building the deck video that I did for you guys the other week as well, is you need to do your research, you need to understand what the deck is, and I'm hoping that this particular type of video will not only show you combos and ways that the deck can operate, but will also show you how the deck is supposed to operate and the core cards you need to be going into. Anyway, so we'll start off with an opening hand of 5. Now, you want to ideally get a mix of control. You definitely want either your special summon or your Familiar Possessed. Ideally, you want your Familiar Possessed if you then get the Spirit Charmers. And the Parallel Exceed is just another option in here that can then unlock you into either more Link monsters or rank 4s as well. So it's just a little tech that I'm trying out right now. Now, in this opening hand of 5, control-wise, we're okay. So offensive-wise, we haven't really got that free special summon. So what you would need to do from this hand is decide where you want to go. Now, the Possessed Partnership can actually bring a card back, which is great. and you still need 2 attributes on the board in order to get that non-target destruction. So our go-to card that we're going to be using is the Spirit Charmers. Now, you could do, if you want to, send the win. Putting the win in the graveyard means this is now live. It also means you can replace it by searching another one of itself. Now, the Spirit Charmers, like I said, can only search you a Familiar Possessed, Charmer, which we don't actually play in this deck, and then Possessed Spell or Traps, which means our other targets off of the Charmer when we play it will be another version of the Possessed Partnership if we wanted to replace this, so it's free discard fodder. The Unpossessed, which again, because it's a trap, is a little bit more restricted, and it only protects your Charmers that can't be destroyed by battle, so it means if you're going into your Link 2s, they're protected, everything else is open game. And then a Familiar Possessed, so any of these, if they attack, they gain additional 800. Again, it's a bit more offensive, we don't need this right now. So my go-to in this particular scenario would be to go straight away for an Awakening Possessed, and then secondly, go in for another Charmer. Now, the Charmer can be fire, it can be wind, it can be water, it can be earth, it can be anything you want. Now, the reason I've gone with this route is by putting win into the graveyard off of the discard of Spirit Charmers, even if it stays in the hand, it still means that I've got this as a disruption that I can play during my opponent's turn. Now, the Spirit Charmers makes you set one, and then you add the other one to hand. So we're going to set the spell, and because it's a spell, we can activate it this turn. So just by activating the Awakening Possessed, what we can then do is normal summon the Heater. Now, because we've normal summoned a monster, if a spellcaster monster is not with 1850 original attack, is normal special summon to your field, we get to draw 1 card. So we're going a little bit luck based on what our draw is, but we do already have 2 forms of disruption. The Parallel XZs right now is a bit of a downer because he's of no help to us. But anyway, we're going to normal summon the Heater. That's going to let us draw 1 card. We've got the Unpossessed, which again is absolutely fine. It does allow us to float during the next turn should we need it. Now, we're going to set the Unpossessed, we're going to set the Partnership, and we're going to set the Strike. Now, through this is our like maximum control board. Now, keep in mind, this even includes the monsters itself. So straight away, your Heater is a base of 2150, okay? Now, we're going to play it through during our opponent's turn as and when we see fit. The only thing that would really suck, well, not even suck that bad, is if our opponent wanted to Twin Twister us, we can lose a couple of our interruptions. But it's nowhere near the end of the world because we can put this into the grave and then banish it to bring back if either of these two get destroyed. So what you'd ideally want to do is your opponent normal summons a monster, they declare to use the effect. Now it's at this point that you can either go, okay, Solemn Strike, get rid of it off the board if it is that big of an effect that they're going to use. If it's not and they actually need that monster to stay on the board to extend further, you wait a little bit, you let them get comfortable, and then that's when you spring the Possessed Partnership on them. So my kind of route, depending on what the board state then continues to develop into, would be the Possessed Partnership. This will then allow me to bring the win back from the graveyard in defense position. Now, by doing so, keep in mind, both of these are ifs. So this one is, if you control monsters with 2 or more different attributes, wind and fire, you can destroy 1 face-up card on the field. You can banish this card from the graveyard, target 1 possessed continuous spell or trap in the graveyard and place it on the field. So straight away, with this, I've got a non-target destruction. With the Possessed as well, I can actually chain block because this is if a spellcaster monster with 1800 is normal or special. So I get a draw. So if I'm worried that my opponent's going to try and ash this, then what you do is you go chain link 1, chain link 2. But I think this actually all goes off in one go. So the idea, I think this all goes off in a separate chain. So apologies on that one, that might be my mistake. But you'll activate the Possessed Partnership. Doesn't target as well, so keep that in mind. If your opponent goes, does it target? You go, no, because then it means they have to act first. So it's all in one go. So you'd bring back win. Because you control 2, you're going to destroy a card non-target. This will then go to the graveyard. This will then activate on a separate chain because you special summon a monster that is 1850 original attack. That will then allow you to draw 1 card. So this is just going to be a random card, doesn't really matter what it is. So straight away, you've done all right there. Now keep in mind, these are now both boosted in attack-wise by 600. Now obviously it's a little less so for the win, purely because it has to come back in face up attack position or face down defense position. You want it face up in order to get that additional form of disruption. Now, if at any point we feel that these are going to be in danger of being destroyed, that's when you flip the Unpossessed. Because then what this does is if a monster or monsters you control is destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is already face up in the spell and trap card zone, you special summon 1 spellcaster with 1500 defense from your deck whose attribute is different from at least one of the destroyed cards. So what it will then do is it means you can now get your Irian and you can also get your Asura from the deck. And you can put them out in a tap position or face down. Again, let's say your opponent goes, right, I'm going to destroy Win. because Win is in defense mode, it's not got any boost. You go, fine, I'm going to activate Possessed, Win's going to get destroyed. That will then allow you to trigger and get one of the other unfamiliars from the deck. As long as you bring out one that's a different attribute from Heater to Irin, that will then keep that these are both boosted by 600, making them a 2450 base. Now you can't trigger this again because it is a once per turn. But you still have, we still have the strike that can deal with them and give them more issues. Now, if let's say you use a strike, absolutely fine. The only downside right now that we've got is we don't have the Awakening Beast that we can summon to the field. But we are going to be able to XYZ summon, so we are going to be able to get parallel XZs during the next turn. So we're going to draw for our turn. We've got Spirit Charms, which is again is great. If you want to risk it, what you can do is you can get rid of the Call by the Grave, because you don't really need it right now. That will then get you 2 more cards. Now, it's entirely up to you. Again, your only real targets are Possessed, Partnership, Unpossessed, or Awakened and Possessed. Because we've already got these 2, you might as well go for the partner. And then you're going to be going for another one of your familiar Unpossessed. So let's go with Asura, just because that way we've now got all of the attributes on the board. Now what you can do is you can normal summon your Asura. This again boosts all of this up, allow you to draw 1 card. We got a Yugioh, which is amazing because that gives us our additional summon. So from this point here, again, it's entirely up to you. Each of these are now all boosted by 900, so they're all base 2750. There's a lot of beef on them board. What you can do from this point on as well is you've got a couple of options for yourselves. Now, you can link all 3 of these away. You can special summon down the Gigabyte. You could turn Gigabyte and then any of these into the Water Boss from the deck. So let's say we go Asura. Get rid of those. Let's say we go into, there you go, our Awakening Gigabyte. Actually, it might have been better to get rid of the Irin because at least we've got this. And then all of these are now boosted by 900. What Gigabyte will allow you to do is rip one from your opponent's hand and you'll both draw 1 card. That's not too great, but it's not the end of the world. Again, these are all boosted. So then what you can do from this point on, if you wanted to, you don't have to, it's entirely up to you, is you can link these 3 together away. And this is where your Selene play comes in. So then summon a Selene. Now, Selene's going to go off as Chainlink 1, and then what you've got is you've got your Gigabyte as Chainlink 2. This will then allow you to search out an unpossessed card. So, entirely up to you on which one you go for. Again, we only play 3, and we only have 2 more left in the deck. So, you'll probably take an unpossessed if you want to. Now, what this also allows us to do is trigger the Parallel XZs. This will then come down to a zone that Selene points to. So that will then allow you to trigger and get another one from the deck. Now, at this point, you've now got the option with Selene to bring back one of your spellcasters. Again, Wind, Light, and then whatever you bring back, as long as it's not Wind or Light, is going to boost everything even more so by another 300. So again, all of these cards are being boosted by 900. You've got to keep that in mind with the Awakening of the Possessed. This is upside down because we haven't used this yet. Now from this point, it's up to you where you want to go. What I would personally do, because I'm going aggression and on this particular build, this is where you can start to use the Virus Codebreaker engine, because then ultimately from this point on, what you're going to end up with on your entire board is you'll end up, wherever I put the Codebreaker, you'd end up having your Codebreaker monster. This would then come off the board. You'd have this here, you would have this here, you'd have the other Codebreaker here, and then you've got your Irin here. So again, 3 different attributes, they're all being boosted by 900. Then if you get rid of the Selene with the Codebreaker, you can go into a rank 4 and you can put it on the completely other side. So then it doesn't point to any of these, meaning they're not going to lose anything. Unchained Abomination is only going to be boosted by 600. But what you've got here is this would have popped 3 back row as well. And then all of these are still boosted. And then you've still got popping coming off the Unchained Abomination as well. So you've got a lot of aggression that you've been able to build your board up with. If you were playing Access Code, you could go into that as well. But we didn't go through a lot of Link Monsters to kind of do that anyway. So this was just like a elongated test stand to kind of explain what the deck does and how it can kind of protrude. Now, obviously, you saw that in the test stand, the first test stand, monster base we weren't as aggressive. Which, you know, it's not the end of the world because what you could still do a lot from that, and the back row helped, you know, compensate in that area. The only time it gets real bad is if you have a really bad balance and you've got either all front row or all back row, because if you've got all the back row with no Charmer and nothing like that, you've got no way of kind of helping to get them to the board. You've got no way of setting up your disruptions. So that's where the downside kind of comes into it. Anyway, we'll do another quick test hand. We'll shape everything up. This one we'll try and go second. Now this deck, again, it's built to go first. So going second, you're going to have a little bit more trouble, but you still have the ability to cause issues as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just with these 5 cards, making our plays is actually really quite good. So what I'll do actually is I'll show you what you do with these 5 cards, and then I'll show you what you can do with the next top card. So the next top card is going to be Parallel Exceed. Now Parallel Exceed is actually really important in this hand because as long as we keep these 2 on board, we've got the ability to go into a rank play, which is absolutely fine. So we're going to activate the Awakening Possessed. Now keep in mind, Awakening Possessed is if a spellcaster monster. So even if you normal summon Luna, you're still going to get the draw for that. So what you do on this one is keep everything in hand. You don't even need to go for the Charmer right now. You could do if you want to, but you've not really got anything you want to discard, in my opinion. So you normal summon the Luna because then that can then trigger Luna's effect, and you can chain block either one of these if you want to, or you've got Called Bias Protection. Now obviously the draw of the Possessed will let you get into the Xyz, or of course you would shuffle the deck. If we went with the Xyz, our next draw for turn, we would have drawn this for turn if we went second, and this would be our draw for turn. Which again is very important because what you can do is as long as you get a Charmer on the board, you can actually negate your opponent's first monster. But anyway. You could also search with Luna, so you could go Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2, so you search with Luna first, then you draw with Xyz. I believe that's how that's how that chain will work anyway. Anyway, because Luna can add any monster's 1850 attack, you can add any one of the Charmers you want, it's entirely up to you. And kind of go from this point here. Now, what you want to do on this one is you're going to special summon down the Gigabyte. Now, you could go into the Gigabyte from the deck, but by doing so, because it doesn't allow you to get that additional monster back on the board, it will kind of neuter your extra deck plays. So from this point here, what you want to do is you want to activate Spirit Charms. You want to get rid of the Wind, because by putting the Wind in the graveyard, you're setting up your spells and traps for the next turn. Now, we're going to search 2 cards that we really need right now. So we're going to go with Partnership, and then you can go for, pretty much it's up to you, because we're going to set the Partnership. You can then either add the Unpossessed, or you can add one of the Familiar Possessed. It's really up to you. None of them are going to hit the board, so it really doesn't matter which way you want to go with this. So I'm going to take the Unpossessed on this one, just so that I can float during the next turn. Because keep in mind as well, if a monster or monsters, it doesn't even need to be a spellcaster, you just get to special summon a spellcaster with 15 defense from your deck, as long as it's a different attribute. So you're always good with that one. Now, because we've got the 2 monsters on the board, what you want to do, you could leave Luna on the board as a disruption, but we're going to go a little bit further on this one. So we're going to link these into a link 2. Now, it's entirely up to you. The meta play would be to go into Verti Anaconda. By doing so, your Verti Anaconda is obviously going to be your meta definer, and then you'll be able to back it up with an Xyz, because then an Xyz will summon down. And then this will then trigger to get one from the deck. So it really depends on you. To be totally honest, if you're going meta and you've got it, that's your Verti Anaconda. I mean, that then turns your board from being what is going to end up being like a floodgate plus an interruption into a floodgate plus 2 interruptions. So it's entirely up to you, or 3 interruptions if you count Called by the Grave. Yeah, so we're going to get the second Xyz out. Now it's entirely up to you on what you want to do with the Xyz. Ideally, you can go into, well, ultimately, we can't use the Called by the Grave yet, but ultimately what you'd be going for is you could go into, well, you could go into a Selene if you wanted to, but ultimately what you'd be going in for is you'd be going in for a rank 4. So I think Abyss Dweller is probably the best one right now to be there. You could go Baguska if you want to, entirely up to you, but we're going to act as if this is Verti Anaconda because that is the meta-relevant card, in my opinion. That being said, you'd probably want to keep the Unpossessed in the hand because you're Verti Anaconda and you need that discard effect for Dragoons, or Dragoons needs that discard effect. And then keep in mind, Verti will be dark, Abyss Dweller will be water, and Dragoons is dark, so they both get boosted by 600. And then when you bring back Wind during your opponent's turn, they're then going to get boosted by 900. So you're making everything a little bit harder to deal with. So let's say we pass our opponent's turn. We shotgun Dweller early game, early doors. Okay. Trying to think where my Dragoons is. I think it's over on one of my other. It's in one of my deck piles that are somewhere within my reach. I think. There we go. Have I got them here? No. Okay. Just imagine that's Verti Anaconda. So yeah, during our opponent's turn, we've done that. Now, if they try to interrupt us or anything, we've got Call by the Grave. We are going to have two monsters with different attributes as well on the field. So because you're going to have Dark and Water. And again, you activate Partnership at any point, you bring back Win. Win is then, if you did want to set this, keep in mind you'd get the draw for this. But it's a bit risky because if they stop this, your Dragoon's now dead. So that's why we want to play a little bit safer. Activate Partnership. Partnership will then non-target destroy one card your opponent controls. Sorry, guys. Awaken and Possess will then trigger to let you draw one. Dragoons. Verti is looking at your opponent's graveyard completely. You've got Call by the Grave should they try to trigger anything else, and you can deal with that. You've got your Dragoons, which would be here to deal with anything else. Now, if you don't go Verti, then obviously what you do is you've still got this, and you've still got the draw for this, and the interruption for these two cards as well. So then what you can do is, again, we're going to play further through this just so you can kind of see how the deck can then recur its resources. Now, if you didn't have Dragoons, you would set this, because then what it means is if any of these are threatened to be destroyed, you're then going to get an additional trigger effect. So we'll draw for our turn. Effect Veiler, absolutely fine. It's not the end of the world on this one, because what we're going to do is we are going to be able to go into Selene, and Selene is then going to get placed to go even further forward from us as well. So what we're going to do from here is we're then going to turn this, the Earring, or again, IP Masquerena. That could have then linked away with the Abyss Dweller if you wanted to, and Disrupt. It really depends on what you're playing. All I'm trying to say is this zone here is a Link 2. The stronger the Link 2 you can produce, the stronger the Link 2 you have, the better your kind of interruptions will be. Regardless, if it's not a spellcaster, it doesn't matter, because then what you do is you still use the Familiar Possess Win. That will then give you a Selene. That will then allow you to trigger Selene because you've got the Possessed here, you've got the Call by the Grave there, and then you've got your Spirit Charmers there. That will then trigger Selene. Selene will then be able to bring back any of your spellcasters. Now, bring back the Win, because then straight away, that will then let you draw off of the Awakening Possessed. Boom, we've got an Asura, perfect. Now, from this point on, it's entirely up to you. You can normal summon the Asura, you then go into the Codebreaker combo. The only issue is this is in the way, so you'd actually have to get rid of your... You'd have to get rid of this, but again, it's absolutely fine, because then what you can do, again, normal summon this over to the far left. Everything is being boosted. Water, wind, earth, and light. Everything is being boosted by 1200 attack already. So then it's entirely up to you. You just go, cool, let's go into attack. You've got a 3050 attack Asura. You've got a 2900 Abyss Dweller, and then you've got a 3050 Selene. So straight away, you're already causing issues. If you do get rid of these two, obviously everything's going to get a little bit weaker, but again, you're going to be able to extend your board further. So you'd go to Codebreaker. Codebreaker will then bring out 0 Day. You'd then use 0 Day in Codebreaker and go into Berserker. That will then put 0 Day here. And then what you do is you use 0 Day in Selene, and you go into Abomination if you want to. If you can find a Link 4 that isn't a Dark, which is just 2 monsters, then you're going to boost everything else up a little bit more. So then straight away here, everything's being boosted up by 600. So straight away, you've got a 29 there, a 36 there, a 2450 there, and then a 24 there. This is going to pop 3 back row. You're going to do a substantial amount of damage. You can set your 2 traps. You've got your Effect Veiler to control them even more, if this one wasn't already set, of course. And then you're going to pass. And then during your opponent's turn, not only are you going to get popped with Abomination, but you've also got Partnership, which will then destroy a card, which will then trigger Abomination. So it goes, cool. And you're going to keep dealing issues. Now again, like I said, if you were to make Access Code Talker instead of Abomination, for the example, you would have at least Selene in here, which is a light, and then of course your Verti Anaconda, which is a dark. Or if you didn't have your Verti Anaconda play, you would still have a level 2, whether it be IP Masquerena, which again was a dark, or whether it be something like the Earring, the Water Charmer. So again, this is more a broad scope kind of deck analysis breakdown to kind of let you guys know, hey, it doesn't have to be this specific card you summon, but if your scales of power in your deck are anywhere from this to this. Here are your options. This is what you can produce. This is how your end board is. This is the disruptions you can provide. Now, I know this is a little bit of a longer video than usual, guys, but this was just to be, again, designed to be more informative for you. This was designed for you guys to be able to go, great, I now understand it a little bit more. You've gone a lot slower through this video, which is absolutely fine, just so that I can understand where we're going with this, what the outcome is, where I want to go, the plays I want to make, and why you, or me personally, choose to play it this route, or why I should be playing it this route. So yeah, that is it, guys. Simple as that. I hope you like this video. I know it's a new one. It's something that I'm trying out. So again, please comment any kind of feedback you have. I'm more than happy to listen to feedback. As long as it's constructive feedback, always happy and always open to do stuff like that. If you did find it useful, please smash the like button to show your appreciation towards this type of video. We do have like all of these decks coming out in Phantom Rage. You've got UAs, you've got Mutants, you've got Tri-Brigade, you've got Dual Avatars. If you want to see a video like this for them, you need to be smashing that like button to show the appreciation for this type of video, and then I'll produce more videos like this where it's a more slowed down, broken down build up of the deck, the core cards of the deck, and then just generally giving you or providing you with a learning how to play a particular deck. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and happy dueling.